blooms on old wood.
Yes.
That's exactly what they mean. That
Gotcha.
This stuff was formed before winter. And your job, Terry, is to keep those guys alive in a zone 5 environment.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how do you do that? You did something.
I did. We took a roll of burlap and wrapped it around the tree.
Right.
Around the bush, around the shrub.
Did you collect the ugly stems that were there together? And you can do that.
We did. We first went around with twine
There
to
you go.
bring it together closer. And actually, the thought on it was just to make it easier for us to wrap it. Apparently, we
course.
did the right thing.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah. So we took some twine and we went around to bring all the branches together. And then we took the burlap, started at the base, and worked our way up. However, to note, we did run out of burlap.
Okay.
Yeah, we should have done our math first to figure out how much burlap we needed. So, just doing the math real quick, and I did this before we started chatting here.
Right.
So it's about 13 feet around my hydrangea, and the roll is like 3 feet tall.
Yeah.
So overlapping, I think we had to take 3 passes of the burlap, and from what I gather is we should go around it twice.
Twice is good.
Okay, so that turns out to be about 78, 80 feet of burlap, which we way underestimated, and we had some extra weed fabric.
Yeah, that works.
That we ended up bringing in, or weaving in somehow.
Did you cover the top and overlap the top?
We did not.
And where do the flowers form that you want in the spring?
Hopefully on the top.
That's correct.
Yes.
But that's the one part you didn't protect.
Right.
Okay. Now, have you taken the burlap off?
We have.
Is anything starting to form on those dead branches?
No.
Okay, so we should have gone around maybe 3 times. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't want to use plastic, okay? And it's not you're trying to raise that inner environment to a zone 6, which is 10 degrees warmer during the winter than it is in zone 5.
Yep.
Okay. But you don't want to use plastic. If you want to build a $15,000 greenhouse around this plant, that would work. But don't use plastic. And I'm glad to hear that you did not cut off those ugly sticks in the fall.
We did not.
You did not. And a lot of people do because, it's cleanup time, right?
Right, they look dead. Yeah.
And what you'll get each time, whether they die over the winter or you cut them off in the fall the previous year, is that the roots are perfectly happy in a zone 5 and they'll just sprout out and you'll get this beautiful green foliage. It's wonderful. You'll fertilize it and it'll grow even faster and bigger. And maybe, if your karma is halfway there, you'll get a blue flower in the middle of the plant down at the base.
Right.
Which is what you got.
That's what we get.
Yeah. So it's all really a crapshoot. And it has nothing to do with karma or the Venus. It's just winter cold. We're in the wrong spot. The best thing you can do, you have to put your priorities in the right place. You want hydrangeas, or do you want to live in Connecticut? Move to South Carolina, move to Maryland, move to New Jersey, move to the Cape. Invite us out for summer. We'll give you some advice, right?
Maybe one day.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking to our audience.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Invites are open. Podcast at MackeysInc.com.
And it may take a week to analyze your situation, but that's life, huh?
Yeah, right.
Waterfront properties only, please. Thank you.
Please.
Yeah. But we'll, you're trying to do something that the plant doesn't want to do. Okay. This is why you have God gave us 5 other hydrangeas for our use. And they are all dead hardy. They are all beautiful in their own way. You got to open your mind. Okay? I'm not saying don't try the macrophyllus, the newer reblooming hydrangeas, the Endless Summer and the Let's Dance series from PW. are all very good, and they're more forgiving. In other words, they'll form, because they're reblooming, they'll form flower buds, but later in the season, and those flowers will be smaller. They're not going to be the big ones that you expected in the spring. And the nice thing about them is that if you're in a deer situation where you have deer coming in that tend to eat the tips off, that actually stimulates more growth, and if you can keep the deer away long enough, more blooms later in the summer.
Gotcha. So in those reblooming ones, can you break down the reblooming cycle and what's actually happening there a little bit?
Rebloomers, yeah. Oh, they are still the big leaf hydrangeas,
Yep.
so they still need to be protected. Okay. If the stems don't die or you don't cut them off, they will produce beautiful big spring flowers, blue or pink depending on the pH.
On the old wood.
On the old wood, on
Right.
last year's growth, right?
Okay.
And then those flowers will fade, but the rest of the plant keeps growing. And where those on the stems that are new growth,
Okay.
that just came up from the spring, the plant technology is to have shorter internodes, which is the stem space between leaves, and the flowers tend to form coming off of an axil where the leaf meets the stem.
Okay.
And that happens quicker because there's less growth needed in the stem for it to happen.
Yep.
So that later in the summer, you'll get these smaller blooms, but you will get blooms, and that's why they call them rebloomers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So then the macrophyllus that we're talking about, they flower on old wood, the really fussy shoreline types.
They all flower on old wood, yes.
And then the limelight, the paniculatas, and the Annabelle Incredibles and stuff we were talking about, those are all flowering on new wood.
New wood. So you
This year's growth.
So you can whack them back.
Whack them back.
in the spring or the fall before, and you are going to have great success.
Correct.
It's-
And as that stem grows, and it'll flower off that new stem,
Yep.
or the new growth on that stem.
Yep. And the only way you can go wrong, and people are going to go wrong the first year, is not to anticipate the amount of growth that those have. You really need to cut them back by half.
Oh,
Yeah. In order for them not to grow any bigger than what you have.
sure.
And you're going to be a little scared, just like grapes, you're going to be scared to prune them back as far as you should. But don't worry about it.
Okay. Anything as far as like pruning when, let's say those Annabelle Incredibles that have these massive flower heads on them.
Yeah.
Is there any way to prune that we can prune to thicken the stems so that they can hold up these large flowers?
Well, they're designed to have thicker stems, but yes, the farther back you cut them off, the better off you're going to be. And of course, it has a lot to do with, do you fertilize them? No, don't fertilize them, because fertilization makes for floppy plants, floppy green plants. If you wanted to put some phosphorus or potassium in your soil, that's fine, but there's no need to do this. Most of the plant, when I say most of the plant, over 96% of the plant comes from the air and the water, not from the soil, and there's only a few ingredients in the soil, which if you plant organically and don't rake up your leaves under these trees, will all automatically go back into the soil, compost back into the soil. If you do clean up, you may want to add a little bit if you see your plant yellowing or becoming a little bit weak or not flowering or flopping.
Okay.
But cutting them back every year relentlessly, and I mean cutting them back with head shears.
Okay.
Not the electric head shears, not the gas head shears. I mean a big pair of scissors.
Yep.
Just take a day, go through it all, and you'll do just fine. You may need loppers for the paniculata trees.
Yeah. No, we planted it 2 years ago, I believe, and like the trunk of it is thickening right up, and the branches are coming out. And this year it looks great. One of my prouder garden features.
Well, you know what? I'm so proud of you for picking a sensible hydrangea, even though you inherited that finicky one. But you're going to do it, Terry. And one of these winters is going to be mild enough you'll have success.
No. Next year, we'll take another stab at it. We're probably not going to get any flowers on that Macrophylla hydrangea this year.
Yeah.
But next year, where we made the mistake is we wrapped it all around. We got to the top, and our thought was, well, we don't want to canvas the top because that way, when the snow comes, it's going to sit on it. It's going to break the tops of the branches down. However, because we were thinking, we just lay, a layer of fabric over the top.
Sure.
Where I totally, I'm actually disappointed in myself for not thinking of this, is to cone the top almost like a teepee.
Yes.
And bring it to a point so that you wouldn't have any fabric just canvassing over the top. Really, it would, roll off, and you can go and knock it off after a heavy snow anyway.
Right. And that's why it's important not to use plastic, because plastic doesn't breathe. And the other suggestion I might have, Terry, is also that you do this in and around Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. You can turn your mummified, your wrapped hydrangea into a scarecrow for Halloween, a pilgrim or an Indian for Thanksgiving, and then a snowman or Santa Claus figure in the winter, and be the talk of the town, to tell you the truth, and have some fun at it to boot.
Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know.
And the burlap is reusable. Remember that. Save that burlap.
Oh, yeah. Well, after you use 80 feet of burlap, you're not going to throw that away.
No.
Yeah. I honestly, I really didn't. I didn't do the math. I was like, oh yeah, 50-foot roll, I'm good. Ran out, and then we had this black and burlap covered ball in the front of the yard for the year.
It was a little trashy, but
Yeah, but
front yard and all.
Yeah.
And then no top hat and cane to make it into a stick figure, so to speak.
Right. So it was. Next year it'll be better.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll work on it.
Yeah. Great. So we've got down, our different varieties. Let's talk quickly about planting the hydrangea. Anything unique about planting a hydrangea compared to other shrubs or even a rose?
No, it's still the brown end goes in the ground.
Okay.
And like we said in other podcasts, dig your hole about twice the size of the container that you bought the hydrangea in.
Yep.
You want to make it as deep and plant it as deep as it is in the pot, higher. Mm-hmm. Try not to get any lower. Fill it in. If you want to put some compost in that fill on either side, it's nice because that becomes a transition zone for the roots. You want to score the roots once you take it out of the pot with a knife. That stimulates root growth. Water, no fertilizer. My gosh, don't use fertilizer right away. If you want to use it the next year once it's established, that's fine. But remember, when you use fertilizer, it's going to grow faster, and you're going 5 years down the line, especially if it's a foundation planting, you're going to curse yourself because it's going to grow too big too fast. I just want to caution you. Look at the plant. If it needs fertilizer, please give it to it.
Yeah.
Don't let it starve there and languish. But if it doesn't, I'm sorry to hurt your fertilizer sales, but fish emulsion.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm never worried about that. If someone's going home successful with their hydrangeas, that's ultimately the goal, and
there you go.
And we're heading in the right direction. So as far as planting them, the hydrangea, that comes from these Greek words for water vessel. What's super important from what I understood when I was planting mine was that you need good drainage around these plants.
Yes.
So what we did in order to help that was we did a compost and peat moss mixture to help with that soil, give it that ideal environment. And we haven't fertilized it. We don't fertilize it.
Well, the compost gives a nice light start to the fertilization scheme. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm so proud of you to know hydrangea meant water vessel in Greek.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Was that on the
I've
SATs?
had that one. No, well, probably. The math is my subject, so probably didn't get it right then. But that I've had that one in the bank for a while. Yeah. Great.
Okay, yeah, and they prefer not to be in the bright summer sun in the afternoon. They prefer morning sun or moderate shade. Things like the climbing hydrangea will do well growing up trees, and so they will do very well in shade.
Yeah, so I've also heard the climbing hydrangea, you can even put that on that north-facing wall or that north side of the house.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Oh, yeah, no, it's rock hardy, and it's just elegant. If you You know, if you move into especially a brick house or something like that.
Oh, man.
And you plant a hydrangea now, in 10 years, people are going to stop. There'll be accidents in front of your house because people are stopping to look at your climbing.
And you'll see Terry and Len with coffee sitting on the...
That's right. You know,